Yo, what up? It's your boy Macho. Today I'm bringing you a video about the Division 2 state of the game. All right, today is May the 8th, 2019, and I'm going to try to break down about 45 minutes of information into a little short video. Thank you guys for watching. I'm really trying to give some effort and grow this YouTube. And I appreciate you guys letting me know what you think in the comment section. And if you enjoyed the video, you already know. All right, salute. I'll catch you later, baby.
The other thing, I just wanted to remind people that all of the information that we're going through it right now is coming in TU3, which we announced earlier in the stream is hitting us next week.
Yes.
As also a reminder, the raid will release or be unlocked shortly after that, and we will have exact timings for that next week as well. So a lot coming next week.
PTS is, it's been going for a while actually, almost 3 weeks now that we've had the PTS. We had 2 iterations of it, of the Title Update 3 build. We've got pretty much everything we wanted from it, so we are actually going to shut it down tomorrow. Tomorrow morning we're going to shut down the PTS. So Title Update 3, so the next big one is coming next week.
Yay! Clarify also that the raid will follow shortly after.
Yes.
And you will want to stay tuned to all Division channels early next week for exactly information regarding
Title Update.
Next week's a big one.
Yes.
There's a lot happening next week. So so stay tuned for that.
What it came down to was looking at gear score in general, and we just thought that now is just not the right time to increase the gear score. People have just barely made it to 500. Of course, some people have made it to 500, a few hours after releasing Title Update 2. But for a lot of people, they're not even there yet. We have a raid coming, so the last thing we want to do is just tell people, "Hey, Title Update 3 comes out, and you have to start over again." We want people to, keep building on the gear that they've been, collecting already. The decision we've made is that we are not increasing gear score with Title Update 3. So maximum gear score is going to remain. We want people to be able to choose what they want to do in order to get them. We want people to be able to play their favorite activity and be rewarded for it and not feel like we are forcing them somewhere.
Yep.
We have data centers in Australia.
They're in Sydney, right?
Yeah, for all the people that are, as you said, down there. And the idea is to make sure that the people that are playing there can play together and don't have to, try to go to some data center somewhere else. So to make sure that they have good latency. The problem with some of those is that, of course, it's a less populated region in terms of player base compared to other regions, which means that when you're trying to matchmake for specific activity, the likeliness that other players are going to be looking for matchmaking in that same activity at the same moment, in the same level bracket and all these kind of things as you, is of course much lower than in highly populated data center. So we constantly have to balance on our side, how long are we willing for you, or how long do we want to make you wait and try to matchmake you in your data center so we can make sure that you have a good ping and a good latency before we start looking for players outside of this data center to make sure that eventually you can matchmake. So initially, what we had was we would look only at Australia, only your main data center, and say, okay, keep matchmaking until you find someone. The problem with that is that, well, it's great when you find a group. When you don't find anyone, then you just matchmake forever and ever and ever, and nothing happens. So we've been tweaking that since the launch. And one of the tweaks we made recently was to say, okay, well, let's start sending people outside of Australia, and let's reduce the time, because we were getting feedback that people were waiting too long. So we said, let's reduce the time for which we are sticking to Australia, and then we start sending people outside. But the problem is that a lot of people were ending up in Asia, which was a bit of an issue also in terms of language. So then we made more changes to say, okay, no, let's send people to America instead. Which solves the language issue but makes latency even worse. So the feedback we got then was just like, a lot of people, it seems, would rather wait longer and make sure that they can play in Australia rather than actually directly be match-made somewhere else and then have pretty poor latency. So we reverted those changes, and basically now we are back to trying to favor Australia and keep you matchmaking in Australia, which means that for the time being, you may have longer matchmaking time, but therefore, when you're finding someone, you will
coming up to people shortly. And these aren't final. Like there might be some things that change in the written form of these patch notes once they hit the forums and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But this is where we're at. Okay. Some commendations have been removed, and there's been a conversation around some of those things that you can kind of get. You can miss out on it for like annoying things, right? Like if you have to go to work one day, you're suddenly not going to get this commendation. So things like the distinction commendations about consecutive days playtime have been removed due to the above changes. So those new commendations focus on more like cumulative time.
Yeah, so I mean, the discussion we've had was just, so we had a lot of people that were having issues with these commendations because, as you said, I mean, sometimes it's just like, it's all the commendations that are basically based on playtime, that are telling you, hey, you should play, there was like 600 hours of the game, or there were some that were like, play every day for 30 consecutive days or whatever. And it's like,
some people can do that.
A lot
of us can't.
It's just not fair of us to ask you to just, prioritize the game over anything else. So we've decided that this was not a direction we wanted to take, and that we'd rather reward people for, playing the game and completing challenges and achieving meaningful things in the game rather than just like, so spending time. I'm going to read what's written there. So increase the base cap for receiver components and protective fabric crafting materials by 200. Meaning that their caps now starts at 350 and end at 600 with all material capacity perks.
Yeah, Rasmus mentioned that on the stream the other day. He also mentioned that Inaya has become a crafting vendor as well.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, very cool.
Which is good. And that's part of the effort, I think, I think Rasmus talked about that, right? It's part of the effort of also trying to be a bit more generous with blueprints and distribute blueprints as well and make them also more predictable. We have crafted exotic weapons will now always upgrade to the maximum gear score of the world tier they are crafted in when the upgrade blueprint is used.
Nice. They have the opinion that the gear sets, not the brand sets, are a little bit underpowered.
Yep.
So these are interesting. But before that, bonus armor granted on blue attributes gear is significantly increased. There's above. Armor percent can now be found on defense attribute rolls as well as health percent. So for the gear sets, hardwired now grants skill damage instead of shock duration. So that, I think, is going to change a few things. Ongoing directive now grants special ammunition into any weapon, including the weapon currently equipped. And now grants that special ammo on any kill and not just weapon kills. So I guess if you get a kill through, grenades and other things.
Yeah.
True Patriot decreased the debuff cycle from 4 seconds to 2 seconds, and I like this one. Increased damage dealt to nearby targets when full flag is active to 50%. Nice.
Yes. So I think for the first part, the comment here is just that we want to make choices in survivability meaningful. We want people to be able to actually spec in survivability if they want, or at least when they get armor bonuses and armor percentage and all that, really feel like I can be more tanky and potentially I can be a tank. So that's something that we really wanted, and that's something we've tested on the PTS, and we've seen already people coming up with new builds and new ways to leverage that. So that was really the intention there. And then for gear sets, I mean, you mentioned it, it's just across the board, just making them more interesting and more powerful because they could be a bit disappointing at the moment. So I'm just discovering it now. Okay, cool. Slightly reduces the quality of items from clan caches. Sorry,
but you should know about it rather than finding out about it later.
Yes, exactly. Increase ammunition drop chance from enemy NPCs to limit situations where players would run out of ammunition during prolonged fights and higher difficulty activities. That one is a good one because it's just, it would happen when you play in higher difficulties that you're just like, you're sticking to that combat room and then you just run out of ammo and it's like we still want players to be like to kind of have to move and be mobile and therefore go get the ammo drops, but overall we just wanted to have more ammo drops, so it's really less likely that you're just going to run out.
Cool.
Does not drop below player's average gear score and will guarantee gear score 500 when the player has reached 500 gear score.
That's great.
So basically what we're saying here is that when you're reaching a 500 gear score, now you're guaranteed to, all the contaminated stuff you're gonna get is gonna be 500. So that means going to the Dark Zone, even though we don't have the 515 anymore, going to the Dark Zone is going to be a very, very good source of getting 500 gear. And therefore, like, get a lot of items because contaminated is going to be
All right, quickly move on to the
Easier to
next
come
thing
across.
before people think that's Dark Zone exclusive, Yannick.
Yeah.
Please.
In the same logic,
Great.
heroic difficulty mission bosses, stronghold bosses, bounty bosses, and control point alerts level 4, reward container. Yeah. No, I botched it.
You were doing so good.
Hamish, no, oh my god, I panicked.
Start again.
Heroic difficulty mission bosses, stronghold bosses, bounty bosses, and control point alert level 4 reward containers will guarantee gear score 500 when the player has reached 500 gear score.
Yay, PvE as well. That's cool. You did it.
It's a very long. Reduce the chances of items dropping at a lower gear score than players' average gear score.
Perfect.
So that's across the board.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean it's never going to happen, but it's way less likely.
Cool. But to get guaranteed 500 drops, because you mentioned earlier in the point that you just the long sentence that we talked about, that was heroic difficulty.
Yeah.
But here, increase the rewards for daily hard and challenge mission
Yeah.
projects. Those will be guaranteed 500 as well. So
Yeah.
you don't need to be, if you're searching for guaranteed
When you're
500 gear. Yes, when you are 500.
Yeah.
When you're at max gear score, at 500 gear score, you don't have to just do heroics. Because maybe you're at
No.
max gear score and your
No.
gear's not good
Yeah.
enough for a heroic
Yeah.
yet, or
So
not
you-
optimized.
Yeah, so if you don't want to go to a dark zone to get contaminated, if you don't want to do heroic anything, you can keep doing whatever you want. In general, you're going to have more chances anyway to get 500, as we said as the point above, which is that we've reduced the chances of getting stuff that is below your gear score. And if you do the dailies, then you're guaranteed. So at least that's like a consistent, predictable source of getting guaranteed.
Beautiful. All right, that makes me very happy. New feature, post-mission activity summary.
Yes.
Very cool. So after completing missions, players may opt to look at an activity summary, showcasing the performance in that activity and allowing an expanded look at a variety of detailed statistics. Very cool. I imagine these are going to be things like, total damage done. I don't know exactly what the stats will be, but I'm very excited to see it. Cool. I hope other people are excited about that too. I know there are some people who will be excited about that.
Yeah.
I also think it's cool that it's a post-activity thing. I don't like...
I mean, during the activity would be kind of shitty.
Well, it's one of those things going back to, I know we talk about WoW and damage meters and that sort of thing. But having those during a mission, it kind of makes people alter the way they play. And they pad their DPS and they do all sorts of cheesy things that aren't great for your group. And, or they'll just keep healing when they don't need to be healing. So, All right, so if people have watched the stream with Rasmus, we talked about the new mods, the auxiliary skill battery, which is going to fit into the skill mod slots and grant skill power. That's coming in TU3. Right, I was writing it, and yes, looking at a gear piece of 500, those will no longer go over 500. Instead, there will be the option, or there will be a separated statistic, a recalibration score, which goes, it's completely separate. So you'll have 500, and then you'll have out of 100 for the recal score.
Yeah. It's basically, it's not just 500, but it's basically recalibration does not change your gear score anymore.
No.
Recalibration value goes into its own number that basically allows you to see how well recalibrated your gear is, but that's not going to change your gear score. So you cannot artificially just boost your gear score.
Yeah, so an optimized build will still be 500.
Yeah.
And then you will look at each individual piece. So it'll be 500, and then 100 out of 100 for each of those pieces would be the cap.
Yeah, you get a total, but basically, yes, it's a value that is from 0 to 100. 100 means you got the best recalibration you can.
Cool. They will make some people very happy. Decrease the damage of veteran, elite, and named NPCs. Greatly decreased melee damage of all tank NPCs. That's cool.
Yeah.
Moderately decreased melee damage of all non-tank NPCs. So this is really just kind of the NPC balancing, various UI and audio improvements to living world activities across the board. Control points. I think this is interesting to talk about.
Yes.
Yannick, do you want to tell us what's happening with control points?
Yeah, so the first thing is that so control point difficulty is now more clearly communicated using regular difficulty names in addition to alert level. So it was not really clear for a lot of people when a control point goes alert level 1, alert level 2, alert level 3, what does that mean compared to the rest of the game. So now we're going to tell you, like alert level 1 is normal, alert level 2 is hard, and so on and so forth. So you actually have a way to compare and know what kind of difficulty you're actually getting into.
That's nice.
Which is pretty good. Give it back to you. Players can now select the civilian takeover icon on the map as a respawn option during control point takeover. The option is disabled after the enemy leader joins the fight. But that is also a really good quality of life. When you die during a control point, it can be frustrating to have to respawn like, a few hundred meters away and have to walk all the way back. So
Yeah, cool.
we're not done.
Some other changes that we mentioned this earlier. The settlement weekly projects now award blueprints. That's cool.
Yeah, all of them, that is, because it used to be that some of them do, sometimes they don't, but not all of them.
Nice. Just quickly, the skill changes. The assault drone in PvE, the drone will now more actively look for a new target once it loses its current target. The defender drone, and I guess this is both PvE and PvP, will now drain more quickly once a shot has been deflected. I know a lot of people are using that in PvP, so we'll have to see what that means. Reinforcer chem launcher. The gas clouds do not stack anymore. Take note. The Reviver Hive. There's been bugs with that. More occurrences of those have been fixed.
Yes.
The revive time has been slightly increased, but it should be more reliable. I think there may be still some instances that we're waiting to see.
Yeah, we're still looking at any situations where the revive might not work. There's a lot of potential awkward cases where things are just preventing it from working and all that. So every time we get new cases, we're looking at it. But we've fixed.
We're not going to go through all the talents changes because that's again
because there's 2 pages of
way
them.
out of time, and
or 2.5 pages of them, 3 pages of them.
Yeah, I also think it's better for people to see those in the written format when that drops.
Yes.
There are a lot. I'm sure chat will want to know about specific ones. If there's overwhelming support to find out about a specific thing, then maybe we can.
In general,
like this one, I don't even need to read all of them. Exotics are having their damage increased.
Yeah, all of them.
Just across the board.
Yeah.
And also the TAC 50 now has 2 zoom states. If, like me, you're running sharpshooter.
Yes.
That's cool.
That's
I can't wait to see exactly what those are, but I like that. PvP specific things. So in Conflict, the armor boost has been reduced by 50%. Same thing for the damage boost, actually. Yes. Also, the way that balancing works, it wasn't, and still it's not communicated. Oh, no, it is in the UI. Players are now scaled to max world tier gear score across the board. And there are some PvP-specific overrides, so weapon and skill global damage modifiers will be tweaked, and weapon and skill damage modifiers as well. So people who are wondering if there's PvP and PvE-specific balancing, that is a true fact. Assault rifles, for example, now have a 1.25 PvP damage scaler applied. So I guess that is going to be interesting to see what metas erupt out of that. Yeah. And there are skill behavior overrides as well.
Yeah.
Cool. On that note, the damage modifier has been reduced in PvP, so people have experienced that on the PTS, and we'll see the final one next week. So there's a generally increased time to kill
in PvP.
In
yes,
PvP.
Absolutely.
And that has various implications for a lot of different things, and we'll keep an eye on that as we go forward, I'm sure.
But there should be more viable, which is pretty good. Dark Zone. So what do we have in here? Contaminated loot. Bosses now guarantee a contaminated loot drop. So
cool.
And remember, gear score changes. So contaminated, if you're 500, now guarantees 500 as well. Higher challenge landmarks can drop multiple contaminated items. Basic, veteran, and elite NPCs have their drop rate lowered, but now have a very high chance to drop contaminated loot.
Nice. Do you think we'll see more people in the Dark Zone? I know there's been also some matchmaking things.
There's also some matchmaking changes. I mean, that's the intention. It's to make the Dark Zone more interesting, but again, without making people feel like they have to go there if they don't want to, but at least the people that want to go there and wouldn't go there because currently it wasn't rewarding or the experience wasn't fun, this is addressed to them. This is addressed to making the Dark Zone more interesting and more fun.
Cool. Max bag size is now 10. Yes. That's cool. This is what we talked about before. So, and we talked about this with Ryan and Terry from Redstone when they were on, that there's been some changes to the brackets.
10 when you have the tier 10 perk.
Yes, of course. So if you have to have the max perk to have the max bag space in the Dark Zone. Yes, the bracketing system for the Dark Zone has been changed. So if you're level 1 to 30, you'll be put in a bracket. And then world tier players will have their own brackets. But there's going to be, in general, fewer brackets, which means faster matchmaking and more dense population.
And since we have the normalization, we can do that without risking to send people into a bracket that is way too OP for them or whatever. Everybody's normalized. So even if you're, a level 5 going to a dark zone, you would be normalized to level 30. So you wouldn't get too much of a disadvantage compared to everybody else. So yes, the intention here is really to reduce the amount of possibilities for people to be split over a bunch of brackets.
Fantastic. What else has had some criticism of people who have been playing the occupied dark zone, and then when they lose experience, it's brutal.
Yeah.
And that has been changed. So reduced dark zone XP loss to 35% of the XP in your current dark zone rank when being killed. That's cool. So
Less
some
brutal.
adjustments there.